This is my latest model. It's a 3D printed, all original Flash Gordon rocket from the 1930s. It was all designed by me using Shapr 3D software. The model also has LED lighting. You can see some lighting coming through the windows in the front there. The inside interior of the rocket ship is all detailed. There's a little door on the side that opens. You can see some of the interior, some of the engine. And we'll see how much we can see. You can see a little bit of the interior. You can see seats in there, different types of tanks. I didn't put plastic on the windows so that you could see in better. There's a dashboard and a control panel for controlling the operation of the rocket ship. I can show more detail with some still pictures, which I'll show to you. Besides the rocket ship, there's also characters I developed. Here's the hero and the heroine, Flash Gordon and his girlfriend Dale. Those were designed in ZBrush. There's the characters. The scale on this model is approximately 1/24 scale. The stand was just a wood plaque from the arts and crafts store. I added some modeling paste, some rocks from the aquarium store, painted everything, put some grooves in it for the tire marks. See if I can turn this around a little bit so you can see a little bit more of it. You can see the profile and the wheels. It's fashioned after the 1930s type of movie. It was printed on a 3D resin printer to maintain the details. You open up the inside so you can see some more. There's the engine there. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but if you look up in that corner there, you can see the radio that was in the movie. The radio in order to contact Earth. It's a very fun project to do. You look down, you can see some of the supporting framework that supports the interior of the model. So anyway, that's Flash Gordon, or better known as Dr. Zorkov's rocket ship from the 1930s. And then the characters that go with it. So I hope you enjoy my new model, and here's some more details. All the items for the model were printed with a 3D resin printer. I use this printer to print my models. This is the cockpit part of the model. The print time for the cone of the rocket was about 8 hours. Print time on the rear part of the rocket was about 11 hours. It was a dome shape and could support its own weight as it printed. The added supports you see are mainly to preserve smaller details. These are the interior parts that get glued in separately. They were printed as a separate run. Printing these smaller parts was about 6 hours. And these are the tires, or the wheel assemblies, and the supports that printed them. This picture shows the inside of the cockpit. The panel and the chairs get glued in the holes. The model is lit by LED lighting. I bought this kit from Amazon. The LEDs are extremely small, about the same size as the wires. They fit through the holes in the framing system and hold it close to the ceiling of the model. There are 3 lights that light the model, 2 for the front cabin and 1 over the engine. Wiring runs through the back tire of the rocket, through the bottom of the stand, and to a little switch. It is a 3-volt battery. This picture shows more detail of the interior of the model. It is not lit by LED at the moment, it's just light coming in through the front windows. These items you see here are painted in acrylic paint and glued in with super glue. The figures were also painted with acrylic paint. In order to paint the model, I first wrapped the outside to protect it and then spray painted the inside with this spray paint. Once I got a good coat of white spray paint on the interior, then I prepared the outside of the model. I used some cardboard to plug the holes in the window areas with some tape to protect the inside that was already painted. Then I sprayed the outside of the rocket with this paint. I also painted the wheel assemblies and painted the tires with acrylic paint. In order to create the stand, Purchased a plaque from the arts and crafts store, and I used dowels to create grooves. I use this flexible modeling paste to put down the surface, put down my rocks, and remove the dowels in order to have the grooves. This is in Shapr 3D. This is Flash Gordon's rocket ship, or better known as Dr. Zorkov's rocket ship from the movies. This is all built from scratch in Shapr. I didn't have any measurements or anything to go by. I just went by photos. I worked on the outside of it first and got the basic shape. Once I got the basic shape, then I started building the inside. So this is the cockpit section. This is the rear section and the rear door, front tires, and the wings. And of course, I got a ground piece to see where I'm at. So in order to see what I'm doing inside, I have these markers, which allows me to get inside there and build different parts. So there was a shell, or the outside of the rocket, and there's frameworks that support it. Those frames were designed not only for looks, but also to support the outside as it was printed. And then there was fins and tubes. Rear tire that was on the back. So I use these markers to check my work as I go. This helps me make sure that the pieces are going to fit together. Like this one, I had to make sure there's enough clearance so when I glue those parts, this piece is going to fit in there. So I can adjust that before I print the model. Same way on the door. To check the door to make sure there's clearance. You can see there's a little bit of clearance right here in order for that door to fit. So the rocket is not glued together. There are these rods, which are music wire, that I use to connect the model together. And they just insert inside of the model. And that helps register the rear part of the rocket to the front of the rocket. These are the parts that are inside of it. The pieces like the radio and the control panel and the chairs and the cylinders, the engine, and those parts were printed separately, and I could paint them and I could just glue those parts in. And the other pieces along the wall and stuff were built in. I used some of my characters from other projects, but he's the right size and he's sitting down, so I used him to make sure everything was working out proportionally correct. And I used another character out here just to check to make sure things looked like they were in scale. And then eventually, once I got the rocket done, then I knew what sizes I needed. I built those at 1 inch to the foot scale so I could get lots of detail, and they could be used at different sizes. But I brought them down to 1/24 scale. That's how I check to make sure everything is fitting before I go to the 3D printer and print these parts. I have a high percentage of success because I've tried and checked and rechecked to make sure everything is fitting before I print it. These characters were created in a program called ZBrush, but you could use a program like Blender to make your characters. All of them have certain functions, some better than others. I like ZBrush because I'm used to it. If you want to find out more about Flash Gordon, there's a link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video and have been inspired to do your own creative work. If you're into modeling, check out my 3D selection on iMaterialize.com. You can also Google me, Carl Whitten Artist 3D Designer, and find my other listings. Thank you and happy modeling.